Hey guys, CJ here. PBX How To is continuing the IP telephone series. This video is going to be on the statically assigned 1600 series phones, and the next video in the series will be the dynamically assigned 1600 series telephone. Some things to note, as always, go in and check to make sure you have licenses. And the way you do this is you do display system parameters customer options, and you go to, I think it's like page 10 or 11. Wherever the maximum IP registrations by product ID are. This is going to tell you numbers. Now, the one you look for is IP phone. And you look at your limit. And your limit, if there's a limit there, that's the amount of IP phones you can have in your system at one time, meaning registered. Okay? And you can see I have one currently registered. So you can add 1,000 IP telephones to your PBX in the software, but you can only activate the phones, or actually register them, and I'll show you how to register them at the end of this video when we install the phone itself. Register up to 450. Okay, if you try to go past that, it's going to say can't do it, you don't have licenses. How do you know what registered IP phones you have? Do list registered IP stations, and it's going to tell you, because here's that product ID right here. Now, the nice thing about these phones is it tells you the version of each device and what firmware they have, and you can see this is an older firmware because I actually downgraded the phone, so you can actually see the example and see what happens in the screen and all that good stuff. Alright, but again, here's the station extension. Oh, the reason this is a 4620 is because in release 3.0 and earlier versions, so release 3, 2, 1, back to the Definity R9, there was no such thing as 1600 phones. So you have to alias them as 4600 series type phones because all the buttons, assignments, and everything's the same. So if you want to clean this up, you can do a change alias, and you can assign the phones actually what they are, but as long as you have an alias. 3.0 and higher, 3.0 in newer systems, 1600 phones are actually supported natively, so you don't have to create an alias. All right. So now what we want to do is we want to unbox our phone, we want to get it set up, we want to download the support files that we want to update our phones to, because you always want them at the latest firmware. And we want to set up the web server to host those files and for the phones to be able to access those files so it can do the updating, because 1600 series phones cannot, I repeat, cannot get files via TFTP. Alright, they can only get it through the web. And I'm going to show you how to set that up two different ways. So if you have a laptop, if you have a Windows 2003 server, I'm going to show you both ways to do that. So, this video we're going to focus on statically assigning our phones, and the next one after that will be doing dynamics. So let's get started with the phone itself. Alright, so I've unboxed the phone, and as you can see, it's a 1608. Alright. I also have a power supply unit. It's the same one as I showed you in the 4600s, but this is a slimmer line version that I actually use for this phone, but either one will work. Power over the Ethernet will work. As you can see, it powers phones pins 7 and 8. There's the LAN PBX connection and the power. Alright, so simple connections on the bottom. Here is another power supply that you could get if you wanted one. Network connection on the top, PC connection here, headset connection here, and the handset connection here. It also comes with a adjustable, which kind of swivels here, if you want to call it swiveling, rocks, handle, or I'm sorry, not handle, stand that you can install, and you can either set it where it's low profile like this, or you can set it up to where it's high profile like that. And that's the way I like it, so I can see the screen. All right. So to power this bad boy up, we need to hook it up to the phone. So remember, pins 7 and 8. I'm going to plug it into the network connection right there. Then I'm going to hook up my actual network connection right there. And then I'm going to supply power to the phone. Alright, so now as this phone powers up, and I'm going to zoom in, you can see the green screen comes on, and I can tell right away this is an older firmware, and I want to upgrade this because the latest is 3100. But as it boots up to the default setting, which is, or default firmware. that comes on the phone. You'll hear the speaker click. You'll know it's ready to go. These boot much faster than the 4600 series. Now, because we're doing static, we're going to hit start a program. All right. When you do that, it's going to come up with a proc password. All right. There's the default password could be 9999. It could be blank. It could be 27238. It's whatever's in the settings file and everything else that's set. All right. So I'm going to hit pound because I believe this one's blank, which it is. And now it asks me for the phone address. All right. So we're going to statically assign this. We're going to statically assign this phone now. So I'm going to say 192.168.1.170. Call server 192. And dots on this one are the star, just like the other ones. 168.1.155. Whoops, I made a mistake. So on this type of phone, you just hit this back arrow key and it will back that up. Okay, so 150. Router 192.168.1.1. Pound mask 255.255.255.0. And when you're done entering, you hit the pound sign to enter each item. Okay, so the file server 192.168.1.180. Excuse me. Now, the reason I'm doing it this way, I'm showing you this because I'm going to show you the files part next. I'm telling this phone where the file server is so it can go get the files off the HTTP server. All right, I'm going to leave that default. And you heard the beep. It goes beep, beep. It restarts, and as it restarts, it goes in and starts looking for the web server. So let's go set that up, and I'm going to reboot this phone and show you what actually happens during that process. Alright, now that we have the phone unboxed and ready to go, we need to set up our web server to be able to host the files that the phone needs to get. Now there's two ways to do this. There's a few ways, but the two ways I do it, I use a Aprillium web server and or I use Internet Information Services. Alright, so first things first, I'm going to show you how to do the Aprillium web server. Now I've already downloaded and installed it, so I'm going to start it up, and as you see it starting, come on, start. It is now started, and I need to open up the console. So when I get to the console, which is actually just a web page hosted off of the Aprillium web server itself, it prompts me for my login and password, which I already set up, and you'll set that up during installation. It will log in. As it logs in, you can see it's sitting on default hosts on port 80 and it's running. What you want to do is you want to click configure. And from here, there's two places that you need to set things up. First and foremost, you need to go into General. And in General, you need to set where your document's path is. And this is the path of where the phone files are actually hosted. I can see I already have temp in here, but you can see I made a temp directory. You can make any other directory you want, like IP phone or whatever. But you can see here are all my 1600 series telephones. There's the 46 settings file. There's the 16XX upgrade file that the phone reads from. So you know this is the one you want to select. So I want to go back up to parent path, and I actually want to select C temp. Alright? So as it selects it, it's going to populate it right here, and I say OK. Now because the path didn't change, it's not going to prompt me to restart my web server. But if I did change it, it would prompt me to restart my web server. So just take that as a note. You always want to restart anytime you make changes to this type of web server. Right? So index files is the next thing. This is think of the index files as how your web pages open up. Okay? If you type in www.avaya.com, they have an index file that says go do this. All right? We're going to tell our phones to go look for a specific file because they're not looking for these files. They're actually looking for a different file. And the file that the 1600 series phones is looking for is the 16XX upgrade.txt file. Say OK. And as you can see, when you say OK, it made a change, so it prompts me to restart. So I'm going to restart. It says, please wait a moment. And as I've restarted, now it shows it in here is ready to go. So I say OK, and it takes me back to the main menu. And here at the main menu, you can see I'm ready to go. All right, from here, you start up your phone, and your phone is going to boot up with the settings that you entered in statically, because I'm going to show you how to do DHCP in the last video, statically, and you're telling it to go to this server. So what do we put? We put 192.168.1.180. Let me move this down. That's the address we're telling the phone when we say file server. This is the address we tell it, because then it goes, whoops, sorry about that. Then it tells it to go to this web server and get those files out of the folder. So now let's set up IIS, or Internet Information Services. This is the version you can actually install this as a local version on a laptop. But since I'm doing this in 2003, I'm going to show you in 2003. So let's do that. So as you can see in Internet Information Services, you can see here's my server name and here's the website. So this is default. Okay. So when I open up the websites and I click on default website, you can see the two pages, and these are your index files that the system's going to look for. So we're going to modify this, and how you modify this for the IP telephones 1600 series is you right click on it and you say properties. When you do that, it brings up the default website properties page. All right, so we're gonna let the phone do this non-secure version. So you do 80 right here. You can do 411, which is a secure version, because that's what the phone address looks for when it boots up. But just do 80, that way you're good to go. And this is internal, so you should be fine. Now, the reason I do enable logging is so you can actually see that the phone is pulling the files. All right, so how you enable logging is you click on properties. I do hourly. It's usually default to daily, but I say hourly. And take note of the location. All right, this is the location right here. See Windows System 32 log files and the W3's SVC1. And that's the name right here, as you can see. All right, so I say apply, I say OK. Now, you need to go do just like we did in their prelims. You need to set your home directory or where these files are. And as you can see, this is the default directory that it's sitting in. I'm going to click Browse. Move this up. I'm going to say Temp, because that's where my files are. And I say Apply. And look at there. The second you hit Apply, it populates the default website with all the files that are sitting in that server. Alrighty? So now, what we want to do at this point is, since we have this ready to go, we're going to reboot the phone. And when we reboot the phone, it's going to pull those files, or it's going to validate the files from here. So I'm going to show you that now. So on my phone, I hit mute, reset, pound. Do I want to reset values? No. Restart? Yes. And this is just so I can show you this example of how to see the logging. All right. So as the phone is restarting, I'm going to monitor this folder right here, because that's the log file folder. And I'm just going to refresh. You don't really need to refresh, but I do it because that's what I do. But you can see the second the phone starts accessing the web server, Internet Information Services server, it's going to populate the log file right here. Alrighty, so I can see on my phone that it's looking for the file. It found the file, and boom, there you go. So now it's written a log file. It's created the log file. And as you can see, it went from 0 KB to 1 KB. That tells me that the web server, IIS, has successfully written a log to this. So we're going to go ahead and double click on this, and I'm going to open it up in my favorite tool, my Edit Pad Lite. Right here, this tells me my phone successfully pulled the 16xx upgrade text or .txt file, and it pulled the 46xx settings file. Okay? Really, really cool stuff. This is how you monitor, actually how you check to see if your phone got those files. Now, I'm going to show you this again, but when we actually upgrade the phone to the 3100 firmware. All right, so let's do that next. All right, now that I've showed you that the phone can actually go verify the files and we know the web server's working, let's go get the newer files. Support.avaya.com. Okay, click on Downloads. Click on A to Z list. Click on 1600 series IP desk phones. Click on Downloads again once you're asked the product page. And as you can see, the latest, actually, what's in the phone right now is sorry, is 1.2. We want 1.3. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go download this one right here. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to download this one, because this is the latest one, as you can see, October 2011, 1.3 SP1. This is a service pack. So we're going to go click on this one. And I'm going to scroll down. And I'm going to get 16XX IPT H323 zip. I'm going to right click on this, save target as. And as you can see, I'm not going to put it in my temp folder. You remember from my other videos, I created a TFTP and a 1600 series folder. I'm going to put it in my 1600 series folder. And as it's downloaded, we're going to say close. We're going to open up the folder here where I just downloaded it. I'm going to extract this, say next. I want to extract it into this folder, say next. And as you can see, it's extracting. Now what we need to do is we need to go update IIS of the home directory for these files. Okay, so we're going to do that now. Now that these are downloaded, and you can see the 16X upgrade is in here, but the 4600 is not. So I forgot to go get that. So let's go get that back. And 46XX settings file. Now again, the reason I'm re-downloading this is because unless you become really proficient with this file, you always want to have one specific for the version you're doing. Alright? And I'll leave that be. So I'm going to save target as, and it should take it right to the same directory that I just downloaded all my files to. And as you can see, there it is. Bin. Yes, 1600. So I'm going to say save. And there it is. It's now saved. So we're going to minimize this. And we're going to see, I'm going to do a refresh. And you can see all my 1600 upgrade file is in there, and the 46XX settings file is in there. All right, so now let's set up IIS to now point. As you can see, there's 2200. I'm going to say permit or properties. Go to home directory. I'm going to browse to TFTP 1600. All right. Now watch right here. You'll see all these files update and change. Say OK. Say apply. And there they've just changed. So now there's the latest version for this phone. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to reset the values of the phone. Actually, we're not going to reset the values of the phone because we already statically assigned our IP addresses. But what we're going to do is we're going to reboot the phone. So when the phone comes up, it's going to pull this, or I'm sorry, it's going to pull this file here, and it's going to say, hey, I see newer firmware. You need to upgrade. Alright? And then as it goes through the upgrade process, I'm going to show you two things. I'm going to take video of the phone actually doing the flash updating, and then I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to show you that this file gets really populated with all the file directory names, so you can see that it actually pushed to it. Okay, just kind of a confirmation. All right, so let's do that now, and let's go to the phone and actually do the reboot. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to reboot the phone. So I'm going to hit mute RESET pound. And it's going to ask me reset values. I'm going to say no. Restart phone, yes. Okay. So now as it resets, or I'm sorry, it reboots, you can see it's going through the restarting phase. Now I'm going to do this. I'm going to edit some of the time frame out just because it takes a while to do the flash. But I won't edit out the actual boot up process because these phones will boot pretty quickly. All right. So you can see there's the old firmware that it's booting off of. All right. That's the first file that you're seeing. Now, you should hear the speaker. There's the speaker pop. Start a program. Because it's already programmed, I don't need to. Now it's starting to look for the file. It's going to look for the HTTPS first, the secure version. Now it's going to look for the regular one. So it found the file, and now it's going to go, hey, I see new stuff. I need to do something with it. All right. So as it's going through this process, you're going to see, hey, I just found 3100 bin. All right. So it's going, hey, I found it. Now I need to do something with it. So it should start here in a moment, start saving to flash. Do not unplug. Okay, this is the process or the part that the phone is currently updating to the latest firmware that you've downloaded. Okay, so I'm going to pause it here and come back to when it's done. Saving to flash. That's the part where it's now saving that firmware to the flash. So the first part was it downloads it to the phone. The second part is it saves it to flash. Now understand, updating these phones takes some time, so you want to do it after hours, or you want to go do phones that if people have these phones and they're not in the office, you want to do those first. But again, remember, if you update these phones, it's going to take a little while to do them. All right, just remember that. So when you're going through this, you know it's not something that's really quick. All right, so there you go. You've seen it, that it saved it to flash, so it's restarting. So it boots up to the new one, and then it should go through all the same process, meaning it goes and checks the file, verifies the files there, you know, all that good stuff. So it's basically doing its cross-checking that it does with all the 16xx upgrade file, 46xx settings file, and everything else. So remember, it retained the settings that I had in here because I assigned this phone statically. I didn't do it dynamically. We'll show you the dynamic part in the next video on this same phone, because what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to downgrade this phone again back to the 2000 version, or basically 2.0, and then go through the process of being dynamic, so you can actually see how that process is set up. It's very similar, but again, you know, and there you go. You can see you're back at the regular phone. And if I go off hook, there's the speaker. You hear it. I can also take the handset off. It says call number. You know, and you're good to go. Alrighty. Now, to actually see the version of the firmware that's on the phone, bear with me here. You hit mute, VIEW pound. Go back up. View settings, yes, next. Okay, you can see the model, the COM code, MAC address, tagging, VLAN ID, IP address, subnet mask, file server, call server, pass-through, and there you can see the firmware version that this phone is on. Alright, that's how you can tell. Alright, say exit, and you're good to go. So, that's it. You've updated this phone, and as you can see, I should be in, let me do an R here. Take note of the product release, right here. Okay, say R, and now look, 0.0. And again, that's just due to the fact of the version that of PBX I'm on. But you can see the product release did change. Alright, so now I want to show you this log file right here. So you remember, let me find IIS. You can see all these files right here. Alright, so if you want to see which ones were actually pulled, and this is kind of a neat thing if you're really a techie like me, you can see what files were actually sent to the phone. I'm going to open this back up, and you can see right here, here's all the files that were sent to the phone. Alright, so it pulled the 3100 bin, it pulled the 3100 bin to verify it, and the phone handled the rest and pulling the files to the phone. Alright, so that's it. That's pretty cool. And the next video what we're going to do is we're going to set up the DHCP version to actually dynamically assign your 1600 series phones to handle doing all this, so you don't have to do it statically. Okay, and I'm going to refer to some of these other the same videos that I took of the phone, but I'll actually show you. I'll take a new camera, or I'll record when the phone's actually getting the IP address automatically, so you can see how that interacts. All right, so guys, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Hopefully this video is informative. If you have any questions or clarifications on it, let me know in the comments or just message me. I'll be happy to answer anything you guys have. But as you can see, we went through the full process of setting up a 1600 series phone. I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.